Cameron Poles, Chief Dot Connector of Black Alley Band. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Denise. It's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, and the kick off Black Music Month. This is for DC. This is very special because Go Go is our official music, and your band helped to make that happen.
Yeah, yeah, we're very proud of it. It was certainly more than just one person or one band that worked to make that a reality. But we are proud. I went to who was then the Ward Five Council member Kenyon McDuffie with the idea to put something on the books. I recognized how even though Go Go originated here in DC, it was the soundtrack to the city. We were definitely sort of being pushed out, marginalized in our own city. And I just had the idea. I saw with Jazz HR 57, they had like some legislation that made jazz like an official part of American art, and so I had the idea. Well, what if we did something like that for go-go music here in DC, something official to have it on the books. And my thinking was that if we did that, it would make it extremely hard, if not impossible, for the erasure of the music and the culture to continue, along that trajectory. So Kenyon McDuffie not only heard me, picked up the mantle, ran with it, and worked with Don't Mute DC and Long Live Go Go, and he became officially recognized as the music of Washington D.C.
Well, I go back. I've been going back a lot on this show, but I go back to Charles Stevenson, who really I think wrote a textbook on go-go for the schools, and just there's like you said, there've been a lot of people who have invested time and energy into DC's music. And so, to turn this advocacy into legislation on your part, it was just I think amazing. It was just a wonderful. There's a word I want to use to describe you, but you did it, and what it protects the music going forward. But what else has it done for Go Go?
Yeah, so one of the ways that I frame my work and advocacy is to preserve and advance the culture. So the legislation was not only about preservation, of what we've already done here in the city with the music and with the legends, the foundation that they laid, the Chuck Browns, the Red Assts, the Trouble Funk, the EUs, that not only honor the foundation that they laid, but also have resources in place to, advance the culture, to make sure it evolves and adapts so that it can continue to feed and be a lifeline of communication and connection, for our people here in the city. Ron Moden, Dr. Natalie Hopkinson, they are, the Don't Mute DC campaign. They were instrumental in sort of, taking what we did with the legislation. My thing was about protecting, preserving, and advancing. They were like, well, in order to advance, legislation is nothing without funding. So, they were the ones who sort of put that pressure, on, the elected officials in the city to say, listen, it's one thing to support it in name; it's another thing to support it with actual resources.
Right.
And so those resources have been in place since the adoption of the music as the official music of DC, and it's critical. It's things have to be properly resourced if you are true and sincere about supporting them.
Right. Uh, you know, um, Go Go. I don't know how to properly describe it when the music first started. right? Other than it was, local, maybe Southeast, no, but it's global now. I mean, I believe it was the Grammys, right, where go-go was recognized. The bands are traveling around the world playing go-go music, which says a lot for the District of Columbia and it being a destination for travelers. And now you're even involved in other issues like environmental issues. There are other things that you're doing with the genre, to expand its reach. And talk a little bit about that, if you would, about the how you've reached into that environmental sustainability playground. What do you
Yeah,
all?
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So for me, a little bit to sort of tie it all together, like there's absolutely a specific history in terms of the founding and the formation of Go-Go, but and I don't want to minimize that at all. What Chuck Brown and Ray Asst did to, sort of create the music, but the way it sort of like things there are facts and then there are narrative that sort of get to the truth of it, right? There's a narrative that gets to the truth of it. And so the narrative that I have come to believe that's true in terms of what go-go is and how it started is that here in DC, this is like really probably the only place that I know in this country that had like a black mayor, a black superintendent of schools, a black police chief. Like my principal and all of my teachers were black at River Terrace Elementary School, right? And it's like DC is sort of this. It was like this burgeoning sort of mecca of black excellence. The original Chocolate City, right? This mecca of black excellence, and Go Go was the soundtrack of that black excellence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think over time, it went from sort of, uh, the soundtrack to Black excellence to sort of being this cohesive connection as we race against being marginalized, gentrification and all of that. It became sort of a pocket of resistance, right? And so I think that narrative, you know, it resonates with people around the world. People outside of this country understand how, different cultural forces and economic forces really try to come in and sort of take over,
Right.
their traditional ways of life,
Right.
right? And so I think that, you know, we, unlike other African American art forms like jazz and hip hop, you can sort of export the music, right? I personally have not found that I can be successful exporting go-go music. What I find to be successful is exporting the experience and the story of what go-go is to our people here in DC,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that is how we've been able to get traction. That's how Black Alley has been able to get traction globally. And then for me, it was also just sort of a natural, um, you know, looking at those experiences, having gone through those experiences overseas, those cultural collaborations and exchanges, and seeing how people are living in developing countries, and then some countries that are beyond the development phase, but still sort of hold on to more of their traditional cultures. I think just like you see the expansion of globalization, it's sort of taking away, making things go extinct, life forms and trees and things, things getting torn down so that to build up in the name of progress, right? Um,
So how
that
is Black Valley putting its stamp on that? What
Yeah,
are you all doing to put your stamp on, sustainability?
yeah. So for me, it's sort of connecting those dots. go-go is hyper regional, number one, which sometimes people look at that as like some sort of deficiency or failing because we're not billionaires like we don't have these moguls like hip hop does, right? But I think that I'm trying to explain this like in terms of how we put our stamp on it. For me, it is like a blueprint of how we sort of sustain and get back. So the music is almost like a metaphor or an example of how you can exist, uh, how you can exist and thrive without having to extract so much from the environment, without having to constantly
Get it.
grow and extract,
Right.
right? And
Hmm.
so we not only is it sort of like this obscure metaphor, like we're trying to really bring that to life in terms of like even like our merch. Like we have the recycle bin merch line. So instead of like creating all of these, putting more pressure on the environment, more creating more waste and more pollution, like they're already like incredibly dope clothes that are already made. So why don't we just put our recycle bin logo on clothes that already exist, right?
Oh,
Things
yeah.
that people have already in their closet, right?
Right.
So,
As
you
opposed
know,
to ending up in landfills.
yeah, right.
Right.
So, different things like that. So those are some of the like tangible things, but I think more importantly, it's just sort of helping people realize that it is cool to just sort of regenerate and reuse and recycle. Like most art that we think is brilliant and beautiful is recycled. Like my favorite Michael Jackson song is Human Nature, and that is a cover song, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like just sort of getting it in our minds that, life is not really about constantly chasing something that you don't have or something that is new, purchasing something that is new. It is about appreciating what you have, reinterpreting it, and reimagining it so that you can use it for your time and your people and the challenges that you and your communities face now.
I think that's an excellent message to get across to the followers of Black Alley and to the community at large. And I'm curious if how go-go or how Black Alley's music is transcending generations. I mean, folks have grown up on the music, and a lot of the followers are, you know, older now. I mean, is the younger generation adopting it as well? Is it as popular with, let's say, teens? I know they go out, but do they understand the history and the of the music and have an appreciation as much as their parents may? Do you
Yeah,
understand?
no, I think that is definitely a challenge. I think we're making progress. There's a definitely intentional effort by us and then some of the older heads and go to have that intergenerational exchange and keep the music alive, keep the culture alive. But it is a challenge. I think ever since I was just having a conversation the other day, I think with the advent of the internet, right? One of the probably unforeseen consequences or products of the internet is sort of this homogenization of culture. So when I was young, um, every like DC had its own slang, its own music in terms of go-go, its own fashion, like with Madness and DDTP, and it was like we were so self-contained in what we felt was cool and like our sort of markers of success and cool. And it's like everywhere you had pockets of black people, that was the case. So Philly had their own slang and style, and Detroit, and then down south in Memphis and Atlanta and Dallas, and then of course the West Coast had their thing going on. But once YouTube and social media came about, it's like all black children from all over the country started sort of seeing the same sort of music and the same fashions and the same songs. So now you have all of our kids, no matter what city you're from, speaking the same little five little slang words, or the same
Right.
little five dances that they see on TikTok, or the same, same fashion. Like they all dress the
Yeah.
same and had the
Oh,
same little movements when they showing off the money, right?
right,
So
right.
the internet has really sort of had this homogenizing effect on Black culture.
Interesting.
Um, but I think that we recognize that, go some of the older artists and go the people who truly love it and live it. We recognize that, and I think we are making progress and definitely being intentional about sort of revitalizing this sense of pride and belonging in region. It's not about excluding or
Right.
thinking that you are on you and your people and your way is only the best way. It's not about that, but it is about sort of having a level of pride in the ways that you and your people, your Black community in your particular neck of the woods finds ways to express the soul of Black folk that reverberate throughout the continent and the diaspora.
Yeah, I think that's important. And you go to places like New Orleans and, like you said, other places around the country where they've got this distinguishable sound that's just kind of existed through generations. And I think that's what the mission is
Mhm.
for Go-Go. It's Black Music Month. What's Black Alley doing? And tell me, what is a dot connector?
Yeah, so it's like the chief dot connector. It's just a little something that I came up with because it's like even like throughout this conversation, it's like what I have done for the band. I've written songs, and I do some of the more traditional stuff that a manager would do. But then I also just sort of like connect these dots between like community work and
I like
the
that. I
importance,
like that.
the music. So I mean, just a dot connector. It's like putting a cool little thing on, just wearing many hats and doing whatever it takes to get stuff done.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense based on what I've seen you do.
Mhm.
You are the chief. And so, before we close, anything coming up through the month of June in celebration of Black Music Month that Black Alley will be sharing with the public?
Yeah, absolutely. So June 13th, we are at Charles County Fairgrounds for the Cooling You Wine Festival, which is a celebration of just Black music, all different types of Black music.
Wow.
June 19th at Anacostia Museum in the National Harbor. June 20th at Black Rock in Germantown. We're celebrating Juneteenth all weekend, which is that's like the ultimate mashup right there. Juneteenth and Black Music Month. You just can't even hardly get no blacker than that, which
Right.
is always a beautiful time. And then, again, like that first show on June 19th is at the Anacostia Museum. That's special for us, to, play in our neighborhood, in our city,
Right.
And then in June 27th, our sort of like our second home, Penn Social, where we do quarterly shows. June 27th at Penn Social is pretty cool. And then beyond Black Music Month, beyond June, we have the Bahama Breeze coming up. So if anybody wants to travel to the Bahamas with Black Alley, we play. It's a sort of like a festival from the 13th through the 17th, but we play on Saturday, August 15th. It'll be Black Alley and Floor Tree, and then at the Atlantis Hotel and Resort in the Bahamas. So,
Wow, that sounds
um,
like a party.
yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. You're celebrating the 250th. You all celebrating. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cam, thank you so much for being with us, for sharing, sort of the story behind the music. And I think people need to know that,
Mhm.
and just appreciate what you do to keep DC being DC. It is. We got cherry blossom trees and what is it? Frederick Douglass Home and other things, and we got go-go music, right? Malcolm X Park, all those places
Mhm.
playing, been there. So thanks a lot for being us, representing us, and we
Yeah.
appreciate all that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise, for all the years of service and platform and amplifying voices and giving us the independent news that we need. That is more important than ever. And anything that Black Alley can do, anything I can do personally and Black Alley can do to ensure the continuation of the treasure and institution that the Washington Informer is, please do not hesitate to let me know.
I will not hesitate to let you know. Thanks
Yeah.
so much. I'll just say share this with your folks, especially those young folks, because we're trying to share the music, we're trying to share the information. We got to let them know that DC has some great things. This is our community, this is ours, and we've got to protect and sustain it. So we're in this together.
Absolutely.
All righty, have a good one.
You too.
All right.